This is the Starkey Multifamily Podcast. I'm your host, Reed Starkey, and today my guest is Kevin Gardner. Thank you for being on the show, Kevin.
Reed, I appreciate the invite.
Yes, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about you and what your company does.
Sure. I'm a telecommunications guy. My first job out of college was selling cable door to door, and I rose up through the ranks with Comcast. Much of that time, I was the guy on the other side of the transaction. I was the one overseeing the negotiations with property owners. Started my own company 12 years ago, and at that time, we represented Comcast and Charter, doing those same deals. But then when they decided to take that discipline in-house and use employees and not use contractors, we decided to take that knowledge and help property owners. So for the last 7 years, we've been negotiating cable contracts for property owners.
So tell me a little bit about about the cable company and why do they pay an apartment owner to provide service?
Yeah, the cable companies are granted a franchise to operate in a municipality, and that gives them the right to use the public easements, but that does not give them the right to be on somebody's personal property. So if you're a homeowner, you're giving them the right to be on your personal property by way of the service agreement that you sign that says, all the small print on that work order is basically saying you give them the right to be on your personal property. The difference is when there's a multifamily situation, there's the middle person who is the property owner. The property owner is not the customer, but they're the ones that need to grant the cable company the right to serve their residents. And so in exchange for that, the cable company, we've been very successful in negotiating compensation for the property owner, which gives the cable operator the opportunity to provide service to the residents.
Okay, so and then also, the cable companies you said have like tiers. So who grants that? How does that work? Some areas have just one, and some have many. Why?
Yeah.
What is the difference there?
The municipality, the city, the township, they have the right to grant a franchise for any operator, electric company, gas company, in this case, cable company, to operate within their public easements. Cable companies are granted a non-exclusive franchise. So, having spent so many years on the cable side of things, it was always frustrating because they were like, oh, you're a monopoly. Well, the cable company is only granted a non-exclusive franchise, meaning if another cable company came into most cities, they could be allowed to operate as well. The city or the township has the right to grant a second cable company to come in there. The challenge is to build a cable system is very expensive. When you're putting up miles and miles of fiber and constructing a head-end distribution site, it's very expensive. So are you likely to go in to a situation where you may only find that you're going to get half as many customers as if you built to another area where there isn't a good competitor or cable? So it's kind of people have this perception that cable companies have this exclusivity. They really don't. It's just the marketplace in some places has kind of given that opportunity to them because it costs basically the same to build a mile of fiber, whether you're serving 10 homes or whether you're serving 100 homes. So the areas, the more densely populated areas, for a second cable company to come in there, if they're going past 100 homes and they can get 50% of the customers, it's a lot better than if they're spending that money on an area where they can only pass 10 homes. So that's why some of the cities, the more densely populated areas of certain cities have multiple cable operators. I know when I was with Comcast, I was in Detroit metro area, and there are several cable companies in many of the municipalities there. People can choose from AT&T Fiber, WOW, Comcast, things like that, because it's more densely populated than if you were out where I live now, which is southwest suburbs Cleveland. It's, you know, there's just not as many homes out here. So it's not as lucrative for them to get a return on investment.
So what you do is you call the company up and you negotiate terms for them to be on there. So tell me about what those terms can be. You've got the lump sum and the revenue share.
Yeah, there's just there's so many variables that go into it. Everybody's like, well, what can I get? What can I get? And unfortunately, negotiating a cable contract is almost like buying a property. There are just so many variables that you have to go in, you know, that go into it. First of all, are there multiple cable companies that you can talk to? Is there already a contract? How big is the property, right? So we're going to negotiate for a 50-unit complex and 150-unit complex. Chances are that they're going to be more willing to give us higher compensation for 150 units. So it's about that leverage. And the other thing they do is they look at it and they say, well, what can I afford to give, right? So if I've got what's my return on investment? What am I getting? Are we granting exclusive use of wiring? Are we just giving exclusive marketing rights? So again, there's variables associated with that. The cable company is going to look at it as, what's it worth to me? What's the investment? You know, so if I'm giving you money and I am securing the right to exclusively serve 100 customers, I'm going to give you more than if I'm not exclusively securing the right to serve 50 customers.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
I don't mean I don't mean to not answer your question specifically, but there truly are a lot of variables, and there are different ways. You know, there are different compensation models. Some of them have to do with revenue share, which is basically a commission, ongoing revenue for the customers, and some of it is upfront door money, where they pay you a lump sum upfront. The trend seems to be more towards revenue share, because they're looking at it like, you know, instead of giving you a lump sum of money and having you not have any skin in the game, I'd rather give you an incentive to help me grow my business from your residents.
Yeah, and that makes, you know, a lot more sense on the, you know, on the P&L side too, you know, just to have a cash flow coming in.
It does, and it just depends on, you know, every property owner is a little different as well. And what does the property owner want? We had a situation in Tennessee where the property owner had just acquired the property. Their rent was below market. They wanted to make a splash because they were intending to bring the rents up to market. So they wanted to make a splash. So they negotiated a lump sum fee, probably took less maybe than they could have on a revenue share. Although, you know, you got to calculate the net present value of money and things like that to determine what it's really worth. But they upgraded their pool deck area. So immediately, as the rents were going up to be more in line with what the market dictated they should have been, the residents were at least seeing something tangible, some evidence of the fact that the money was going back. And the fact of the matter was, they didn't pull any money out of their own pockets. They used the money that they got from the cable company to do that. That was their goal. That was very, very specific to them. Others want to improve the ongoing, cash flow on a monthly or quarterly basis, because sometimes revenue share is paid on a quarterly basis.
Yes. So, you know, I feel like you've answered this already, you know, based on some of the things you've said, but just to clarify, you know, why would somebody want to go through you as opposed to just calling the cable companies themselves?
Well, because we've been on the other side and we know what's negotiable. We know we can streamline the process. We do a lot of the heavy lifting. We've seen the contracts before. We know what's negotiable. We can find the person to talk to much quicker than somebody randomly trying to reach out. And the way our compensation model works is we get a percentage. We are commission only. We get a percentage of what we get you. So we have every incentive in the world to maximize the compensation that the owner gets, because we get a percentage of that. If we get you nothing, we've spent all that time and effort working, and we don't get anything for it. So, it's just because we understand it, because we were on the other side of the, transaction for so many years. We understand what's available to us, maybe better than somebody who's just kind of going into it would.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like there's a lot of avenues and angles, and you talked about renting the wiring, or I would never think to ask for that. So um, yeah, there's definitely a lot of aspects that I certainly wouldn't know how to navigate. Um,
Well, there's different rights you can give depending on wiring. There's 3 parts of wiring in a system that's on the property. There's marketing rights. There's a lot of different. Like I said, there's a lot of variables that we have to look at. Our process is 16 steps long, from beginning discussion till payment of the contract. So there's a lot of details to it.
yeah, sounds like it. So when would somebody contact you during the buying process?
The sooner the better. We like to get involved from the very beginning. If you're considering buying a property, I would certainly ask you to ask for the cable contract in the due diligence process. Unfortunately, that's not a foolproof system, because many times we have seen where the cable or the former owner has said there's no cable contract, and we found later that there is. The challenge is cable companies have been sold over the years, and properties have been sold over the years. And at some point, that contract has either been misfiled, misplaced, lost, whatever the case may be. Because it used to be the norm when cable companies first came in, that cable contracts were 20 years and would renew for 5 years. Now, this was decades ago, but you can imagine how many of those, if they were 20 years ago, how many people have owned the property since then. Mm-hmm. Or even how many cable companies have been in existence with all the consolidation that took place. So if you reach out to us at the very beginning, if you're told there's no contract, we can double check. We know people that will sometimes let us know if there is a contract or not. And the reason it's important is this is my favorite example, and also the one I feel worst about, because had these people reached out to us, this owner reached out to us earlier, we might have been able to get them some incremental money. So let's say you're buying a property and the owner says there's no contract, and they've owned the property for 5 years, or that they and they got $10,000 earlier. But the contract wasn't in the due diligence, and they didn't even do it out of intent. But we didn't realize that there was a 10-year agreement. They got $10,000. You still have to live with the contract because it goes with the property. And to me, it seems like if you're absorbing 5 years of that contract, that you should be entitled to 50% of the compensation that was paid on the original contract. But you have to ask for it, because we all know once the deal's signed, once the sale's made, once the closing happens, you can't go back and say, oh, we found out that you got $10,000 at the beginning of the process, and we still have 5 years of that agreement. We should get 5,000. Chances aren't very good that you're going to get it.
Yeah. So what factors are important to consider? So the numbers of units, like the location. Is it in a major metro? Are those things important?
Yeah, absolutely. It's rare that a cable company will give you any compensation for anything less than 20 units, and even less than 100 is not something that is really favorable to them. Now once you get over 100, you can get over 100 by maybe we had a situation in Louisville last year or 2 years ago. The owner had 94 units, so it was just underneath that 100 benchmark, right? And we did not get a deal that we felt was fair. The owner was intending to purchase an additional property there in the following year. We decided to wait. They purchased the property. We went back to the cable operator, and we negotiated, instead of for one property with 94 units, we negotiated for 2 properties for 150, and the deal was much better. So in that case, we did all that legwork. We negotiated right down to the point where it was final proposals, And we decided to walk away with the owner feeling good about it because we knew long term, once that owner purchased another property in that market and gained more leverage, the deal would get better. So we waited a year and we got a much better deal because we increased our leverage.
So do you ever have multiple property owners get together to negotiate? Is that something you could do?
You know, when we go and we approach a cable company and we're representing multiple owners, it's absolutely an advantage because they can by dealing with one person instead of three, there is an advantage to them as well because we know what's going on. They know that we're going to be more efficient, that we're going to look through things, that they're going to have to spend less time on the phone. And so there's an efficiency level there. But yes, there is an advantage. The more units, the better. Absolutely. The more units, the more competitive the market, the more customers. The caliber of property matters as well. If you've got a 100-unit property in market A and you've only got 20 customers, and you've got a 100-unit property in market B, which is competitive, and you've got 50 customers, well, obviously they're going to give you more money for market B property with 50 customers in a competitive market than 20 in a non. So that's another point that we take into consideration.
How about like the class of the apartment? So like an A class compared to a C class apartment. Does that have anything?
Yeah, it does. It does. It comes down to customers, number of customers, and what they take. So if you have a customer base that, let's say there's 50 customers and 25 of them take TV only and 50 of them take TV and internet, that's a lot different than if you've got one that 40 of them take TV and 50 of them take TV and internet. So and we see that there's more internet usage in the class A, class B properties. And anymore, internet is the most coveted product that cable companies deliver. They started off with video, but the margin on video is not as good as the margin is on internet. So therefore, it's really about how many internet customers are at the location.
I imagine it's changed quite a bit. Probably wasn't too long ago telephone would have been on there, but that really isn't a thing anymore.
Well, I mean, they still offer it just so they can offer the triple play. And but if you think about it, and I'm probably dating myself here, but when I started off, the internet service wasn't being delivered, and it was just really basic TV service. It was more of an antenna service, and the margins were very good on it because there wasn't hundreds of channels.
Mm-hmm.
There was dozens of channels, and you didn't have to pay as much for them back then. Now the price has not doubled, but the number of channels has quadrupled. So the margin's gotten squeezed. So there's just not as much for them to share. If you're a cable operator and you're sitting there and saying, well, wait a minute here, how much can I afford to give you? Well, I've got a better margin on high-speed data, so it's really more about how much of that do I have. Yeah,
that certainly makes sense. Is there any other utilities that you can save on?
Yeah, we have a broker on staff that does electric and gas in the deregulated energy states. So there are 14 different states that are deregulated where we work. And some are electric only. There's 7 that are electric only. There's 4 that are gas only. And then there's 6, I guess I misspoke. There's 17 states. And then there's 6 that have both. So, it just comes down again to usage. It depends on how much electric or gas you're using. It depends on, do you have common area, a lot of common area? Do you pay for the utilities at all for any of your residents? Do you have laundry rooms, or are the laundry rooms, the best case scenario for savings is you've got a lot of usage. You're in a southern market where you've got a pool open, or multiple pools open year round. You've got laundry rooms in a common area. You've got a lot of, you've got a clubhouse, and the higher your bill is, the more we can save. If you are a smaller complex, maybe no pool, laundry room, there is no laundry room, but the laundry is in each of the units, then your bills aren't that high. So there's really not as much opportunity. But that's an easy thing for us to check. And again, we do that, and we only get paid, we actually get paid commission from the utility if we can get a new customer. And we do that by presenting an offer of a different rate. And if the rate's better and we can save the property owner money, then great. And if not, that they just pass on it. But we look into it. We want to look into it. We want to see if there's an opportunity there. I think, as we know, Illinois is a great state.
Yep.
For that. And I know we looked into a property out there, and it looks like there's some significant savings, because that's one of the states where there's both electric and gas savings.
So there's no cost to the property owner with the gas and electric. You're negotiating that with the supplier.
Correct.
And then, so how would somebody know if their state is eligible for either?
Our website has a list of the states that are deregulated, where our broker works under, I think it's reduced expenses. There's a tab that you can click, and it's got all the deregulated energy states and the markets, because even if a state is deregulated, there's certain markets that we have better luck than others. So it's got a whole list of who the electric or gas provider is.
Okay. So then if somebody wants to move forward with this, what steps do they need to take to contact you?
You can reach out to me at kevin@multifamilyutilitiesolutions.com. Our website is the same, multifamilyutilitiesolutions.com. And my contact information is on there. I'm on LinkedIn. It's Kevin Gardner, Gardner. I'm sure they can shoot you an email, and you'd be kind enough to send them my way. And the key is that we will talk to everybody. We will find out if there's an opportunity. We don't even sign a contract with the client until we identify if there is an opportunity. I'm just not a big fan of extra paperwork. If I sign a contract and we find out there's already a contract in place, then we've wasted both of our time. We go and we find out, is there an opportunity? Can we ask for a proposal? Is there the potential of getting a deal done? If the answer is yes, then we do an agreement with the property owner. And we have a standard scale. We get paid a commission. It's a sliding scale based on the number of units. The more units the owner has, the lower our commission percentage. We don't get paid until you get paid from the provider. So we do a deal with you. It could take a month to get the deal done. And then it could take up to 90 days to get payment from the cable operator. And then you've got 30 days to turn around a payment for us. So a lot of times we're working 5 months in advance, but that's okay. Because, we like win-win situations. We're in it for the long haul. We want repeat business. We want to build relationships and build partnerships. And we just think that's the best way to do it for us and for property owners.
Yeah, it's a great model. And I think I think a lot of people don't know at least the cable part. They may be aware of the deregulation, but I really think that's a great opportunity and a pretty unique business. I don't think there's any other competitors out there that are doing the same thing. It seems like you got quite a handle on it. So,
well, the great thing for us is we've seen the business exploding. There's so many people getting into multifamily. It's exciting. But, they've got their hands full learning the business and taking over their first and second properties and growing their business. This is one less thing for them to have to worry about. And yet it still puts money in their pocket if they just turn it over to us. It's very turnkey. We try and make it as easy as possible and do as much of the work as we possibly can. The other thing is that, and this is very important that owners need to understand, is When you give us a letter of authorization, you're giving it to us to negotiate on your behalf. At no point are you giving us, we do not have the authority to sign on your behalf or to make any agreements on your behalf. That's up to you. We've gone and we've negotiated, like I mentioned, the one in Louisville. We just didn't think it was a good enough deal, and we did all that work, and we didn't make anything for it until you know, a year later when the time was right.
Well, that's awesome. I definitely appreciate you being on, Kevin. And
Reed, I appreciate it. Yeah, it was great to be one of your initial guests. I feel honored.
all right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Reed. Continued success.
All right.